I request Dubey Saab to come over the stage. I give other names besides Sri Deepakanandji who has come over here, who are going to present their papers in this session are Desh Bahadur Limbu. Professor Desh Bahadur Limbu. Yeah, he is here, please. Mr. Andrew Bakru. Mr. Andrew Bakru, is he here? Okay, please. So that all speakers are there. As you know, the time allotted is 15 to 20 minutes to each speaker. Then around 15 minutes we generally keep it for question and answer. So there is now the time is almost as what we need. So we begin. In this session, there are papers on the subject. The first speaker will be Swami Deepakanandji, from impure consciousness to pure consciousness. What we listened earlier in ecological issue versus the inner change within man, and how this inner change must come, its way. It is in this Vitrag Vignan, the holistic inner science perspective, we will have a view about it. The second paper by Desh Bahadur is a novel topic. It is on towards philosophy of fearism. And I was also trying to understand what this subject is, but I was more, then I found it very much eccentric as well. There is a department of fearism study, and Professor Limbu comes from there. So we will have again the related topic on this consciousness and the character that man has, also collaborating further in our holistic pursuit of understanding of the issue. Then the third speaker, Mr. Andrew, will be speaking on the will and its functional role in action theory, the contribution of will, how to do it. So from that angle he will be speaking. I request first Swami Deepakanandji to present his paper. He is Ashtaputra of Dada Bhagwan. He is staying at a branch which is near Singdod, district Surat.
Honorary Chairperson Professor Dubey, Professor Vyas, respected speakers, research scholars, students, participants, and Mahatmas. My special reverence goes to Dada Bhagwan, who initiated me into this holistic science, and a very hearty reverence goes to Param Pujya Sri Kanu Dadaji for nursing me into holistic science. I further thank the APC committee to include my paper into this session. Okay. The scientist of the millennium, he explained that all activities of the physical matter, universe, through his theory of relativity, which he combined with electromagnetism and gave the concept of unified fields theory, and further claimed that there should be a final theory of everything tying together all known phenomena to explain nature, behavior of matter and energy in existence through a comprehensive set of equations, which he projected, but it was an open line of research. Against that, we have holistic scientist Dada Bhagwan, who said holistic science explains and justifies activities of live matter connected with our mind, speech, and body, and the energy controlling it, as everything that exists is a complete whole and a perfectly united one. Today, Stephen Hawking, while further working on Einstein theory of everything, explained how he came to know about Big Bang to black hole to the image of the universe with remarkable truth and accuracy is the story of learning to understand what we see, what we perceive. Here, holistic science teaches us how to cultivate those positive visions in life, diverse situations, making us observe as it is, understand and experience, that is to know, to conclude that ultimately every living being, and especially humans we come across, are all same and united one in this visible diversity, which apparently is due to radicalized social conditioning only. Here, the physical means of observation has a lot of limitations. Against the power of perception, what we have is infinite. All the absolutes did not use any means to see, understand, and experience everything. And we know that they used the power of their perception, which had become transparent and ultimate. So, as per holistic science, the world is perpetual and it is made up of 6 eternals. Soul, that is pure consciousness, matter, space, element of motion, element of inertia, and time. Our body is also made up of the same 6 eternals. And as the famous Vedic saying goes, as is the body, so is the universe. We had been listening this from last 2 days a lot. Almost all the speakers talked about the same thing. And because everything is holistic, everything is connected. So it is said that if we want to understand the universe, the macrocosm, what you need to do is understand the microcosm, which is our cell, that is our body. So the world is perpetual. It was, it is, and it is going to remain forever. Here we want to recall Einstein's theory of relativity. Matter cannot be created nor destroyed, but can be converted into energy, and vice versa. So here I want to highlight one very important thing. Because of the perpetual nature of the universe, the fact every seeker in his quest of spiritual truth, even while talking to others, in principle, they always talk to their own self. So you will never find any of these great thinkers talking to anyone else, but they had been talking to themselves only. So, as it is said, after all, everything is well connected, complete, and a united one, which we want to establish, we want to understand, and we want to experience through holistic science, which is very well revealed by Dada Bhagwan. The world, what we see, it is said, instrument and instrumentality aspect only. Jagat nimit naimittik hai. Here, Dada's one of the very important and famous and revealing aphorism. I with my is Jivatma, I without my is Paramatma. Here I have elaborated this. In ignorant state, I, that is small I, in that condition, in ignorant state, we have causal ownership. So, along with that, when one lives, His state of being is Anadi Anant, meaning from infinite time he was there, and in this condition of his state of being, he is going to remain for infinite time. That's why it is called as wandering state. He is a world being. This state is called relative, causing new karmas. One totally believes with conviction and decision that I am the name bearer. Here, the professor of psychology, B.F. Skinner, has said, categorically said, that everyone is radically conditioned from his childhood itself, and the wrong beliefs made my consciousness, the I state, impure in the very presence of the perpetual element, pure consciousness. We will see the elaboration of this. When I was born, I was given a name. So my name is Deepak Anand is correct. But to say and believe that I am Deepak Anand is incorrect, because my and I, they all are always separate. To believe I am Deepak is considered as blunder by the holistic scientists. Body is karmic effect, so there are relations, a wonderful revelation again, wherever there is eye to eye contact, there are relations. Just imagine in this conference, you will not come across everyone eye to eye contact. So we must understand, we can easily understand that we are not related to all of these people, although we are under the same umbrella at this spot. Further, I say I am son because of my relations. I am son, I am brother, I am friend, I am student, I am citizen, I am healthy, I am young, I am engineer. These are considered as second, third, fourth wrong beliefs, and they are identified as mistakes. So here we can say that because of this ignorant state, I become owner of my body. Because of the wrong identity, believing I am Deepak, I have a wrong identity, I have a wrong ownership. Ultimately, I say my body, my speech, my suffering, so I become sufferer also. And the result of this ignorant state of being, I impose doership on myself when everything is good, and definitely on others when anything is bad. This condition is relative as we have said, due to impure consciousness. Whatever situation, circumstances we come across is the decided aspect or called destiny. Decision is the independent aspect, free will, and in this relative ignorant state, we end up causing new karmas depending upon our circumstances. And as Professor P.F. Skinner has said, principally we have no free will because we are governed and under total influence of circumstances only. And here we want to highlight a thing: suffering teaches us great lessons of life. And holistic science helps us with total conviction to decide today, that is our new free will, and it is the greatest challenge to decide firmly, and we can get whatever we want, even total freedom. Just imagine the seat you are occupying now today was your choice. The clothes you are wearing was your choice. What you did all your life was your choice. So we must understand the power of decision, and that is where lies the secret of every happening. We want to highlight over here a wonderful thing what Stephen Hawking talked about, Big Bang, the karmic charge which takes place because of our ignorant state truly is the Big Bang that occurs in our mind. Nobody can see that, and that is the cause of new karma, new world. Okay, and further, holistic science has given comprehensive answer to everything, and that's how it is the theory of everything to anyone who is seeking happiness, freedom, and bliss leading to nirvana. So both this theory of Big Bang and theory of everything, the holistic scientist has so wonderfully given us further. Precisely today, we come across worldly suffering because of our obstacles created by our own mistakes. And secondly, what we have done, a serious blasphemy. It is called, what we call in our vernacular language, viradhana. We have committed spiritual blasphemy, due to which we don't come across such enlightened souls in life. We don't get enlightenment, and that's how we keep suffering. And if you come across such an enlightened soul, then everything is done. The reason, again, a point to be noted, that knowledge resides in the heart of a jnani, of an enlightened soul. So we must look around for the throbbing heart, that living example of perfection where we can get self-knowledge. Okay, if you come across a living jnani and you are self-realized, then your I become capital. You say for sure that I am pure soul. Immediately in the present scenario, whatever we are here, our ownership become discharge ownership. So I, again that capital I with this small my, my, is now not a wandering state, but it is antaratma, self-enlightened state. Your world has become transient. Sadi, something has started, initiated in your life, and which is definitely going to end. So that antaratma state, self-enlightened, inner enlightened state, has initiated, and it will end. When it ends, it will end into perfection. So this is what you have achieved real, and now you are living on the relative side, discharging old karmas. Your purity is initiated. So one who is self-realized, for him, the state of real relative goes on. Now, with this understanding, they follow the precepts of the enlightened soul, at the same time living as per the scientific principle of holistic science. So now, how would this person, self-realized person, would be living? Let it be any academic career or business or dealing with any relation, the success story depends solely upon how well we understand and use sincerely the Jnani's precepts and the holistic science supporting tools. So in any situation you come across, you must look around for who suffered, because sufferer is at fault, being my karma, being my destiny. So whatever happened is just. And further evaluate every situation through positive visions of holistic science. Understand the world is my reflection. World will not change, so I firmly decide to adjust everywhere and never procrastinate. Don't see laws, perceived laws as right. Just focus on settling, so amicably settle all issues, because I want to avoid clashes on both sides, inside and outside. And I want to remain honest and sincere to myself and everyone, because the dishonesty is the best foolishness. This is how I have consolidated the holistic principle in my life. I live my life that way. Eat food as medicine, daily workout, and sleep well. So whether we fail or succeed, failure always teaches us a lot of lessons. So living with holistic science, we will be able to eliminate all our mistakes. Point to be noted, the moment you get self-realization, your blunder goes, and what remains is mistakes, which you eliminate gradually using precepts. Again, using the other principles, holistic science principles, you can further take care of your relation, of your situations, and have that positivity in your mind that after all, everyone is a good person, and take care of them. Live as per desires of others. so that your desires naturally get fulfilled. Consciousness further gets purified. You can become man of personality, so remaining sincere and moral to Dada's precept and to the holistic science principles, you will become man of personality because you would be freed from your blunders and mistakes. That is your egoism, and that's how personality is going to open. And when a man of personality is around, it is a wonderful saying, whoever who is in his support gets nourished, but whoever who are against him, trying to create chaos or uproar or any disorder, cannot even come close to such a person. They have to just run away. So open your personality trait. Mistakes are bound to occur, but holistic science has given wonderful method of correcting our mistakes and reinforcing the positivity in our life so that we can easily come out of all the mistakes. Wonderful thing, there are certain agencies who prepare people to fight any situations, and that's how even holistic science says, who dares wins. Dare to be sincere and moral, to win, sincere and moral always wins, and you can do it. So, while living with the self-realized state or even an outsider, this is one of the tools called 9 diamonds. We can go in detail, but we'll go further. Yes. 9 diamonds are very effective in remaining mindful in all of our life circumstances, helping us purify our consciousness. Further, we can go using prayer to the pure soul. What it means, any mistake or anything good that we do, it is always in presence of our pure soul, our inner God only. So if you want to rectify all those mistakes, we have to open ourselves to that inner God only to correct. And this is a wonderful prayer given by Dada Bhagwan. Others, the third one, this first tool is 9 diamonds, second is prayer to the pure soul, and the third one, reflections to attain self-knowledge. So whoever who seeks to acquire self-knowledge, so you want to enlighten yourself, then you must have that preparation. And this prayer prepares you wonderfully. And whenever an enlightened soul is around, you will meet him naturally and your work would be done. Instead of struggling here and there, if you have an experienced person, you see and you will learn. You will learn everything just by seeing. This is the basic principle of learning. So one of the reflection is like this: all the phases of mind, speech, and body are natural happening, only scientific circumstantial evidences, the creation of which is owned by none, and it is perfectly driven by the cosmic power. So there is an elaborate prayer. If you go through that prayer and do that regularly, your consciousness will become so sharp, you will become very mindful in all your activities, and it will help you progress in a very short time. Okay, ultimately you come to the last life, and it is said that when one gets such a kind of realization, at best you can attain completeness is 1 life, and maximum it is 15 lives, and it is given for surety because that level of self-realization is ultimate. And in that final human life, all the discharging ownership gets eliminated, and that's how I capital minus small my equals you attain that supreme Godhood state, the Paramatma state, the living God with the body, and that becomes your real state. So first, relative, while progressing, trying to looking for a gnani, relative, real, you get the real relative state, and finally, passing through all the phases of life, you perfect yourself, you purify your consciousness, you become real. Only finally, one attains nirvana, so pure consciousness prevails as perpetual element, eternal element, and one becomes Siddha. This is not a joke. The same enlightenment Lord Mahavira had received We have all the proofs in the scriptures, same thing with Lord Rama. So, our takeaway for today, we'll just see that. Remember, life is not fair on anybody, but it doesn't give us any license to walk on the wrong path of deceit or dishonesty. In fact, come what may, you must perform by responding through self correction and firm resolution of positivity and never reacting by succumbing to any kind of negativities. You are the maker of your destiny because you are whole and so responsible for yourself. So be mindful about all your actions, speech, and thoughts. Decide today, I don't want to hurt any living being through my thought, speech, and action. I will adjust everywhere and give happiness to all whoever comes across me. Sincerely follow the tools for self-purification. Have that goal in your mind. Go to the Gnani. Go to the enlightened one. Be in quest of a Gnani only. That's the surest way to perfection and freedom. Holistic science dares to say, this is again a very good thing. This was said by one of the US president, the buck stops here, John Truman. And here we can say for sure, confidently, that the buck definitely stops here at holistic science. You all are welcome. Thank you. One more thing, just one more thing. This picture is not of an individual. He is living holistic science, not the scientist. Dada Bhagwan is not the scientist. He is the living science because he has given that enlightenment to so many and precisely more, in Hindi we can say, prakrustata se. It is working in Kanu Dadaji. So that living Dada Bhagwan is there in so many enlightened ones. We must make best use of their presence. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Swami Deepakanandji. Generally, we remain restrict to our introductory cards only. He suggested very befittingly how man has a potential to go beyond this continuity of his own introduction always. Before I invite the next speaker, there are two announcements. At the end of this session at 6:30, we have not to remain here. We are gathering there in the main auditorium for the next HSRC function, number one. And I am also, the persons are here to say that the books from ICPR and other bodies are outside. So if they have some interest, they can have a look at it and buy. Now I request Dr. Desh Bahadur Limbu, who is from Nepal, Fearism Study Center, Dharan, Nepal, to speak on towards philosophy of Fearism.
Honorable Chairperson, respected professors and students from different universities and some guests from different countries. I am Desubba and I was born in Nepal, but I came here from Hong Kong. Hong Kong is not mentioned, so I think it is better to mention here. The speaking is quite different because I am a propounder myself of this philosophy. I request all the scholars, students, ask as much as question because I have to be perfect in this philosophy to take to the world tomorrow. And this is a new philosophy, so if some of the professors, students work on it, either in critics or writing or doing some kind of thesis, I hope they will be well recognized in the world tomorrow. Fear word was not coined by me. It was coined by the ancient time who developed language the first time. When I read a book of Marxism, there is one sentence. Two persons were going somewhere. One person has to inform another person about the danger. They did not have language during that time, and the second person informed with some kind of gesture, some kind of a symbol. It is written in the Marxism book. I think after this one, reading this, base of some language, some words is on the fear, according to this sentence. Philosophy of Fearism says life is conducted, directed, and controlled by fear. I hope some of you agree with me and some of you disagree with me. After I started to see life and the world from the Fearist perspectives, I see there are so many inventions, so many philosophies, so many construction, whatever we say, based on fear. But the philosophers, authors, and the people used to take fear as a negative, harmful human factor and always ignore it. From the yesterday, I am listening all the lectures here. Directly or indirectly, fear is coming. Either the name of the medicines inventions, either the name of the identification crisis, or either the name of the environmental pollutions, or some kind of viruses. These are the another side of fear. We are working to reduce. We are trying to get up from the fear. This is totally ignored from the beginning time. Fearist the most of the speakers say that their paper is too long. My paper is not too long, but I'm speaking on the basis of this book. I am not taking too much time because I have a slide here, but some kind of introduction. Only I'm speaking here. Later on, I started to this slide. This is the main book of Philosophy of Fearism. It is published in 2014. This is the second book after my book published. One of the Canadian author, Dr. R. Michael Fisher, has put some comment on Amazon, and I tried to contact him, and we have a conversation in the email. Last year only we met in Texas, only one time. Otherwise, we always communicate in email. As a result, this is the second book. This is the reference book all over the world who has worked in the fear, what kind of their contribution, and what is our contribution regarding this philosophy. This is a book, particularly why I'm showing this book, because so many professors, students. Once we had a program in Nepal, Kathmandu. In the program, the professors asked me the question, you have given the theory, how can it implement it in the literature? As a result, I have experienced myself. This is a novel based on, I said here, Philosophy of Fearism. How to write, this is the one kind of guidelines to the literature. I think most of the informal or formal speaking I finished. I just want to go through here. I want to escape this kind of all the information, sorry. Yeah, here is a starting. Introduction of fearism as a definition. Fear can be put anywhere, that can be the definition. I have given in my book, there is a 20, but here is only I have given the 5. Fear is a beautiful consciousness. People used to ask the question regarding this definition as well. Fear is a conductor, director, and control of life. Fear is a driving force of civilization. Fear is an invention. Fear is a powerful weapon. There are so many other definitions. Fear as, I divided the as into fear, beginning time to the right now. Or optimum point of civilization is always extreme fear as. After 100 years, after 100 years, that is going to be the optimum fear, and we always try to be fearless or try to manage our fear ourselves. I give you the formula of this one later on. This is a small formula, and we heard here so many people, so many speakers spoke about the consciousness, knowledge, like that. According to the philosophy of fearism, life, consciousness, knowledge versus meaning, and fear and cognition. This is a formula. And when we are talking about the life, I think it is coming already holistic, because life is not individual. It is the whole people of the earth. This is the construction of human mind. There are 4 parts in the human mind. We have heard many times of the mind and the consciousness and the knowledge as well. Among the 4 parts of the human mind, there is one part that is called amygdala. This is the first developed human mind, and it is always looking the fear. It means fear is the first consciousness we can say through this development of human mind. After the fear, only other kind of consciousness, other kind of knowledge or activities we can do, but this is the main base for that. I have explained in shortly the types of fear. These types of fear is summarize the whole ness, what kind of fear we have all over the world, all our life. I try to summarize it in only the 6-7 points, but this is not the finalized. Anybody, we can make it, we can just change it. It is always changeable. Like a fear of desire life. Desire of life means we can say Hindi or Nepali, jiji bisa. We try to live ourselves more better life, and it creates automatically some kind of fear. Fear of departure from this world. Particularly this one is come to the religious people. Religious people always think the reincarnation and going to the hell or heaven. Everybody want to go to heaven. Because of that, they try to do the best work, best karma in this life. And it creates some kind of fear. Fear of different of words. This is also the hell and heaven. Fear of relation. The fear of relation is come under the so many kinds of relation, like a property, like a families, like a whatever we have. I think it is also the source, better source of Buddhism, because Buddhism also said we have something, then we have a dukkha, that the sorrow is coming there. Some of the word I have taken from the Buddhism. Artificial fear. It is artificial fear is some kind of the myth, some kind of the superstition, some kind of the beliefs, also create fear to the human life. Comparative and incorrelative fear. There are some kind of other thinking. When we are thinking more and more something, and it gives the fear. And escaping fear. There are so many kinds of escaping fear. Try to escape or try to reduce the fear. This is a fear circle. Everywhere there is a fear circle. I just give the one example here. Judiciary, legislature, and executive. Particularly this is concerned with the government. If government, good government or good country has not the good relation, fear relation with this judiciary, legislative, and executive, that country cannot be run very better way. Some of the countries like the South Asian, the countries particularly, I think that there is no good relation. One cannot listen to another, or I mean the one cannot fear the another part. And when they are not fearing, there is a breach of the law and regulation. This can be fit in the family as well. One of the great philosophers of the France, Michel Foucault, has written the power and the explain or something like this. And he said that family is run by the power. And I just say, no, family is run by the fear. Power has no utilization if it cannot create the fear. Only power has to create more fear that it has some kind of existence, some kind of importance. Like suppose like a United States developed the atomic bomb, mass destruction bombs, but it cannot create fear to any country of the world. Then it is not used. Even the rule and regulation, like so many kind of the raping case happened in the India last 4 years ago in the Delhi also. When the Delhi case was happened, every citizen of the India tried to demonstrate and ask the government to bring the death penalty for the death rappers. Suppose the government bring the death penalty, and that death penalty cannot create fear to the death rappers. Again, that is useless. Fear has a two part. One part is for good, one part is for bad. And ultimately, its main objective is to create peace, prosperity, happy in the society. Like suppose the government passed the bill of death penalty to those persons who are like a terrorist, who are like some kind of violence makers. This rule or this law is for the only certain persons to create more fear. They don't disturb the society. For this purpose, government passed that bill. And another side, majority of the people is taking advantage for that law. If that law is not passed, then all the people of the country can suffering from some kind of problems. These are, I said that individual fear and social fear as well. Utilization, effect, and measurement of fear. Very good example. I think this morning, when the professor, I was giving the example of the car. Car, this is a very good example. Suppose somebody is driving a car and he has no fear, fearless or less fear about the accident, about some kind of traffic rules. Definitely he has an accident. Accident, as a result, he will be something can happen. And somebody, some kind of people, they have more fear. Even the small the case happen or small some problem is coming to his life, they try to frighten themselves and what should I have to do, and asking. This kind of a maximum fear who has, they can go to the depression side and they can do sometimes suicide. There are so many kinds of the disease can be. Like another good example is here, student. If a student has the less fear of exam or the more fear of exam, they can not pass the exam. They must need to control their fear themselves. Remote control, they have themselves, because this fear comes from inside, not from the outside. Other parts, suppose like there is one dog is walking over in the street. The dog do nothing. Dog is walking itself, but people have some kind of assumption, some kind of beliefs that say that this dog can be bite. This is some kind of suspicious. Suspicious create this kind of fear. And I have just tried to develop these new words here, some. I don't know it can be acceptable or not, but my forecast is that it can be acceptable in coming days. Like a fear disease is, nobody said in the medical science the fear disease. But the fear patient is taken into different places, like a depression. I also used to say that anxiety, mental stress, and sometimes they go to the another, maybe. But depends on the degree of the fear and the uses of the fear. And I used to say that I just propose this one to the medical science. Maybe somebody, you are here. Fearology we need to know the pure religion is already, one book is coming from the Nigeria, one small boy is already written, this is the new book. Purology is looking the science of fear only, or study of fear. We need now puriatrics, pure patient, that is pure patient, we have to diagnosis and we have to treat in the, as a pure patient. Those pure patients must be treated by not the other doctors, only can treat by the pure doctors. I said puriatrics. 200 or 300 years before in the Europe, there was no psychology was developed. When psychology was not developed in the Europe, the psychological or mental patient was taken to the some kind of rooms, dark rooms, tightened up, or sometimes they are beaten because they think that this is the course of some other, the body is carrying some kind of bad things like saitans or like what we call beasts, like that. They have been taken and they have been beaten and they have been punished many times. Even India, Nepal, and the South Asian countries, I see in the newspaper this kind of happening mostly in the village and the city also. City also, people is when they have some kind of the mental problem, they are just taken into some room and just feeding them and not caring properly. Exactly, they are the psychological patients. My propose here is that pure patients are taken in the like depression. Suppose I asked some of the depression patients, they said me, doctor used to give us a sleeping tablet, only to just relieve their mind and not to just like make more stress and fear or some kinds of thinking, and they just want to make a less only their thinking or that problem. Exactly, they are the fear patients. They must to treat in the fear patient way. If we are trying to do, then so many patients like a mental or a depression or suicide case also can be reduced. Like a number of the students, number of cases of the suicide in India also increasing every year. I am watching it from quite long time. When the result coming, examination result coming, and if they fail the exam and they suicide. Only we know that suicide is only we know. What is the reason behind the suicide? Suicide reason behind is I could not claim the suicide is because of fear. But around 60% cases because of fear. When they look the dark future and the prestige and some friends together who already passed exam, this kind of thinking led them to suicide. And we have to just take them to the another side, and we have to just make some kind of a relief in thinking. Because some of the countries, they not give emphasis to only the pass the exam. They give the way, they show the another kind of way to that students, they not suicide. And suicide case is particularly developed area, developed city is more rather than the village area. In my research, because why it happened, okay, I want to stop here and I want to just little bit here. This is a follow of possible events. And this is a pure of pyramids. There is a pyramid, means like a civilized people has one kind of fear, powerful people has one kind of fear pyramid, and some kind of celebrity has one kind of fear pyramids. And I just mentioned here a pyramid of fear. And there are so many organizations in the world, even in the India, you said, like a peace and security. When security coming, this is because of fear. To stop our fear, to make less fear. Preservation also coming. Preservation of the forest, preservation of some kind of the animals. Means we are fear because these kinds of animals are going to be extinct. Health coming, and implementation, rule and regulation, government, all of these institutions are indirectly further minimize or manage our fear. And I'm just coming to the end now. Deep philosophy is my next chapter. I want to just only 2 minutes I explain because some of the students' girls are waiting, I think, to know about this one. Deep philosophy word is starting now. Means all the philosophy can be de-philosophy with the help of the fear, because all the philosophy, there is some part of the fear is existing there. In the world, there is some kind of the discourse, particularly in the postmodernism time, and subaltern. In the India is also, there are caste system, before also coming the caste system. I just want to raise one point in the caste system. There are two kinds of logic in the world. One is led by Michel Foucault, and another is led by Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak. They said in their explanations, subaltern or the marginal people or the whatever we said, either they have to speak themselves or they have to be represented by somebody. This is the logic in the world. I am saying in the middle way. I am not agree with both of them, because some of the people is dominated from the 5,000 years, and they don't want to speak themselves anything about their problem. Then how can they represent by the other people? Or they cannot represent themselves too. Both sides, it is in the world discourse running in the postmodernism time. I said, and give the example, small one. Suppose we have a baby, suppose 10 years baby. 10 years baby coming to home, and some kind of the sweetings, some kind of rags, his clothes, and standing in front of parents. He's saying nothing, just standing. It depends on the parents. If parents can toleration, if parents are open-minded, that child can say slowly. Because parents is going to do nothing, even they are just killing somebody. Oh, you kill the boy, they just take an easy. If parent is like that, teacher is like that, student comes and say the problem, I could not do this my mathematics. But if teacher is very strict, always scold, even always try to punish the students, then that student never say anything. Okay? But my point of view is to make the speak out any people, women's, subalterns, marginals, or third genders, fourth genders, or anyone. First treatment we must need to do like a child. We say it in the Hindi or the English. Please, boy, say something. What happened to you? I don't do anything to you. I don't say any, I don't punish to you. When that boy slowly cool down and start to slowly speak. In our South Asian country, what the problem we have, the racial or subaltern, first we need to take out their fear slowly. Because in my experience, suppose somebody study in United States, he is a lecturer or professor, but he is from the low caste. In our area, in our village he come, but he cannot show that I am professor, because he is not allowed to touch the water. Still that kind of fear he has, even he is already highly educated, because it came from the 5,000 years. 5,000 years showing, dominating them, showing the fear. It is in the postmodernism, modernism, and the dark age in the West, all of this. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Limbu, for giving such a nice explanations about fear. I too have the fear of time, and that is why, because we have to gather at 6:30 and we have to go a little bit faster. But it was a good philosophical explanation. Man is driven by different instincts like wonder, doubt, fear, and based on it, many sciences have developed. The reasoning also have followed this kind of instincts, and from that perspective, this paper has a holistic aspect of the fear. Thank you very much. Now I request Mr. Andrew Bakru, the research scholar from Nalanda University, to speak on the will and functional role in action theory.
Sir, I am Dr. S.M. Devaliya, General Fellow of ICPR from Sagar, Madhya Pradesh. My question is to respected speaker from Nepal who read the paper on theory of theorism. There are my two queries. First query is, you said that fear is a beautiful consciousness, and you also mention in your paper fear is just like a sorrow as in Buddhism. So how can you justify that fear is a beautiful consciousness? This is my first query. Now second query, your all philosophy is based on theory of theorism. So I want to know what is the place of concept of pleasure in your philosophy, or any other word, what is the metaphysics of your philosophy? Is your philosophy consider the immortal soul or God or the concept of rebirth as in the Buddhism? There is no the concept of immortal soul, but he consider the theory of rebirth. So what is the metaphysics of your philosophy? Thank you.
So, good evening all. I would like to start by thanking the HSRC for hosting. Thank you to all the staff and everybody helping out. It's been a fantastic conference. My paper is concerned with a comparative paper between how Eastern philosophy as well as Western philosophy may have some underlying similarities in terms of how we discuss the role of will in terms of volition and action formation as a self-cognition agent. Okay. So the research aims are to provide a conceptual bridge between Eastern and Western philosophy, and also to contribute to the developing nature of will. Now, just like in any philosophy or in general humanities papers, there are methodological limits. First one would be that the central philosophy of the Eastern side that I'm trying to focus on is the Manipura chakra from what is conventionally known as the Kundalini system. However, arguably, the chakras have originated during the Upanishads, though the core center, the source of knowledge that has inspired the Upanishads and later any form of Brahmanism or Kashmiri Tantra or so on, have their roots in the Vedas. And because of that, throughout this historical time lapse, there have been plenty of recyclings of different interpretations and so on of this kind of Vedic philosophy that initially started in India. Also, the innermost interpretations are rarely presented to for Westerners as well as for academic debate, because when we discuss issues such as Kundalini or anything similar, there is a very deep sense of spiritual awareness or spiritual path that has to be followed when we discuss such concepts. And because of that, usually such tantras come with a sense of secrecy or come with a sense of not having the ability to share them with an academic space. Therefore, what I'm going to be focusing on is what we can currently share within the academic sphere when it comes to the Manipura chakra. There are also personal topical limitations because from a personal perspective, I am a Buddhist. I am analyzing when I'm doing this paper throughout a perspective of Anatman and so on, which may not necessarily coincide with the ontological necessities to discuss the Manipura chakra. So perhaps I might not be the best at creating this parallel between the Eastern philosophy as well as Kant. However, throughout my lens as well as my training, I am trying my best to create these kind of conceptual bridges. Also, in Western philosophy training, there is this dichotomy between analytic and continental philosophy. Continental philosophy is usually regarded as what we know as the Greek classics, Kant, Schopenhauer, Nietzsche, Foucault, and so on. And the later on developing tradition, which is the analytic philosophy, developed in the mid-20th century, and it is very concerned with analysis, with logic, and what they claim is a more clear and transparent way of discussing philosophical arguments. Now, because of my training, it was better for the audience that I initially wrote this paper for to be in a more analytic format, in the sense that, you know, throughout this conference we have for many poetic descriptions of consciousness, of the self, and so on. And Although these are beautiful and definitely have a place in philosophy, this kind of paper is rather focused on the more analytic and logically oriented ways of describing consciousness. And the thesis of the paper is that the yellow chakra, Manipura, is akin to the will found in Western philosophical thought. Akin means similar, not necessarily exactness, so that can be further elaborated as well. The self has been very broadly defined throughout the paper as an experiential consciousness, also the kind of consciousness that can internalize, interpret, and express the experience that the conscious enactor has. If anybody has any further questions about this self-theory, we can further discuss it in Q&A or in private. Now, these are some of the functionalities that are similar with Western psychology, because when I was trying to discuss this East and West dialogue, I wasn't only strictly concerned with discussing the Western philosophical concepts, but also the way contemporary psychology in the West discusses the will, the self, and so on. The reason why I chose this kind of analysis is because there are some criticisms from scientists and people that tend not to study philosophy, that philosophy is just merely some abstract, intellectual discussion that has no benefits or implications for the practical world, for scientists alike or politicians and so on. So therefore, I'm using some experiments from Western psychology to show that there are not only similarities between philosophy and science, but also between Eastern and Western philosophy alike. Throughout the research, it has been unraveled that both the Manipura chakra as well as Western psychology discuss this will, this kind of volitional capacity that an agent has as not an infinite amount of energy or stamina or so on. For example, even people that work in Congress or parliaments or so on, when they are engaged in discussing issues, they become exhausted after a while. Throughout the day. It is very hard from a cognitive perspective to maintain a strong intellectual and reasoning sharpness throughout the day when there's a lot of significant decisions to be made. And also both the Manipura chakra as well as Western concepts of the will are concerned with self-management, self-control, and this kind of exercise in a more biological sense is discussed as muscle exertion, mental concentration, or other activities that require effort. Some other papers were also discussing it as a source of inhibited control that are behavior, and some psychologists would argue that without this kind of inhibitory control of the so-called volition, people would merely be reacting to stimuli. For example, in a more Indic concept, for example, it would be people being barely stuck in the first two chakras, the Muladhara and the, pardon my Sanskrit, let's just call it the orange chakra, right? So those are usually discussed even within Indian philosophy as being rather animalistic or impulse-based kind of emotive states of consciousness or the self. Another more particular example of Western psychology that I was using is an experiment by De Waal. So what basically De Waal and the other researchers were doing is trying to have a more empirical understanding of that kind of exercise of volition that I was describing earlier. Meaning, they took two different samples of people and they were trying to monitor their aggression. For one sample of people, they consciously told them that the role of the experiment was to control their aggression, whereas the other set did not have that information. And throughout that kind of social conditioning, the experiencers were trying to engage with the subject in the sense of they were trying to arouse a sense of anger, a sense of aggression within the subjects. And the people that were aware that the purpose of the experiment is to mitigate the aggression were successful in understanding that they were not only rather more successful in having the capacity to do so, but after the experiment was over and the survey was conducted, the people that did manage to mitigate aggression were actually in fact more exhausted, more tired after the experiment. 5 minutes. Okay, so I've been told there's 5 minutes. So parallels with Kant, I've been looking at the critique of practical reason, Similar to the Manipura, the will is the starting point of our actions. It helps us redesign our subjective experience towards infinite progress, and our freedoms are understood by a capacity of the will, freedom as self-legislation. Kant is a philosopher that is very legalistically oriented. He was very concerned with finding an object of moral reasoning. Surely, throughout these conferences, we've been talking about the subjectivity of moral experience, the subjectivity of self. However, in contrast, Kant was very concerned with transcending that kind of barrier between the subject and the experience of the subject, and rather try to explain that there's an external object of moral reasoning that enables the subject, the conscious self, to understand what the meaning of morality is. This is a fascinating quote by Kant that kind of helped me bring together his understanding of the phenomenal self with what is academically discussed as the Kundalini self-cognition. And yet this is not to be a principle very possible through understanding, but only for that which gives nothing manifold through its pure apperception in the representation I am. An understanding which through its self-consciousness could give the manifold of intuition, and by through representation the objects of that representation should at the time exist, would require a special act of the synthesis of the manifold for the unity of its consciousness, while the human understanding which possesses the power of thought only, but not of intuition, requires such act. Though there might be some disagreements with any post-Vedic philosophy in regards to whether or not intuition is a salient cognitive tool for the mind, what is interesting, and it was very helpful for the paper, is this unification of apperception between how Kant discusses how the self is formed as a cognitive process of different sensorial tools of the body, and also similarly how the Kundalini theories discuss the elemental, or rather the energetic combination of the chakras to ultimately enable the conscious subject to understand. Throughout the paper, I'm discussing potential criticism that may arise both from other Western philosophers as well as later on some Buddhist criticisms. So even though Manipura throughout the paper have been argued to be similar to a concept of will or volition, either by Kant or Western psychologists, does this truly mean that they are the same? The paper tried to hold that yes, there's a very important, striking similarity between how we discuss the will in both the Eastern and the Western kind of philosophical concepts. As far as differences, though, it is very important to note that Kant, as well as Western psychologists, are concerned with both the self and objects of moral reasoning and cognition through external objects, right? And this may come as a differentiation because in Hindu or any post-Vedic cosmology, there's also tantric practices and so on. So there's some sort of differentiation as to what the tools that are available to actually discuss and understand such concepts. And more on the Buddhist side, surely there are Buddhists that believe or have some sort of paradigm for chakra systems, but these are more Buddhist criticisms that would come from Theravada or non-tantric Mahayanist practitioners. For example, usually the chakra systems assume an Atman, or more often than not, when we discuss a system of chakras, we discuss an Atman that enables or cognizes or uses such chakric energies to enable the self to do action. And again, in Buddhism, the Buddha himself stated the Anatman theory, where there is no such self that cognizes the I, there's no such self that is necessary for the volition, and so on. Some other criticism from the Buddhist side may be in regards to other major doctrines such as impermanence. And yeah, also there's been a Libet's research, which I may not be able to go through in 5 minutes, so thank you, and yeah, I'm open to questions as well.
I thank Mr. Andrew. Sorry for interruption, but at 6:30 we have to get there, and still our chair also has to address. And your paper, which had explanations on will from formal philosophers, and you also tried to connect it from a spiritual angle. Thank you very much. Now, I leave it to the chair, Professor A.P. Dupe, who is Professor of Philosophy at Sagar University, Madhya Pradesh. He is also the Dean of the faculty there. Now I leave it to the chair only. Okay, then I request the questioner to have direct talking discussion with Professor Limbu outside the hall.
Good evening, friends. First, I like to thank the governing body of APC who invites me as a chairperson of this parallel session. And secondly, I like to thank Professor Vyas, who easier my work to comment on all the paper readers. So I am thankful to Professor Vyas also. Friends, in this session, here are 3 papers were presented. Because of shortage of time, I summarize myself and conclude with few words. The first paper writer was Swami Deepakanand ji, and his topic was from impure consciousness to pure consciousness. Actually, when I see that this title of the paper, so I was a little bit confused so about the consciousness, ki how consciousness is pure or impure. I don't think consciousness is impure anywhere. But at the end, I was fully agree with Dr. Deepakanand ji. He covers the theory of relativity and the latest theory of Big Bang. Jagat निमित्त and नैमित्तिक, जगत को निमित्त and नैमित्तिक बताया जिसमें in the end, the paper reader is very scholarly established the difference between pure and impure consciousness, but still a question in my mind, how soul will impure. So I will talk to him in other occasion. But I congratulate you, you established purity and impurity of consciousness. So I congratulate. Second paper was written by Desh Bahadur Limbu. I personally very much impressed with the Limbu, and I congratulate you. You have established a new kind of fear theory. Actually, the word was fearism is very holistic. It includes terrorism and so many non-violence activities. But the Limbu established another type of fearism that is related to Jijivisha. That is, I congratulate him and I am agree with this conclusion of Dr. Limbu. The third one is Mr. Andrew, whose title was, he is a research scholar, his title was The Will and its Functional Role in Action Theory. He is a research scholar, but he very well, he explored the idea of will and relation to action. He is a research scholar, but I appreciate his approach and congratulate him for future also. At the end, I feel myself lucky to witness the scholarly written paper and scarcity of time with these words. Once again, I congratulate to all paper readers and Dr. Devalia who raised the questions, and queries. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Dubey. As writing papers and presenting the papers, understanding the ideas is a sadhana. Even listening to these ideas very quietly and allow our mind to roam freely in connecting at a higher level is also a sadhana. So from that angle, both the speakers as well as listeners, I thank them for carrying this session to a successful end. And now I request the chair of this Holistic Science Center to present mementos on our behalf, and afterwards we will all gather in that main hall inside the institution of Holistic Science Center.